Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, thanks for stopping by, and if you are a returning subscriber, returning to watch my videos, I really do appreciate it. So, episode 7 of Lord of the Rings of Power, came out the other night, and these are my thoughts. Okay, I've been really positive about this show so far. I've stood up for it online in comment sections and whatnot and gotten mocked for it and things like that, which I guess in the overall scheme of life doesn't really matter. But I'm just saying this so you know where I'm coming from if you haven't watched my previous episode reviews for this show, that I do like the show. I'm fine with the liberties they've taken. Yes, there are some issues with the writing and some of the characters and some lore from what I can tell and stuff like that, but it's a show. They're limited in what they can use due to rights and stuff like that. Everything that's happened that people are just going nuts over in a bad way, I haven't really had that much of an issue with. Then episode 7 comes out, and I gotta say, this was my least favorite episode. I found it not exactly boring, but I felt like after spending 70 minutes watching it, I didn't really learn much. Nothing like of importance happened. And I think that's part of the problem with this show is there are episodes where we should, be moving along story-wise and with characters and all these different things, and it just isn't. And then maybe there's like 5 minutes of character development or finally moving forward in a certain character's story arc, then that's kind of it. Like, the show feels dragged out. So honestly, that was just very frustrating. I will say the best part of this episode, again, is Durin and Elrond in Khazad-dûm. It's just the best written, the best actor chemistry back and forth, and character chemistry as well. You learn a lot about the characters, their wisdom, their shortcomings, things of that nature, and I just really appreciate that. I don't feel we get that with hardly any other characters in the show, especially not to this extent. I almost feel like someone who had nothing to do with the main part of the show was handed a basic storyline for the Durin Elrond plot of this season, and that this person turned out to be like this really great screenwriter or something. It just stands out. It's like someone literally different wrote it. That's great because I love that part of the story, but it's also bad because it stands out so much compared to the rest of the show. So it opens up where the last episode left off with volcano explodes, Mount Doom engulfs everybody in ash and flame, and it opens up with that scene from the trailer we see where she's covered in ash and everything. And I thought it was pretty good. If you really break it down, it doesn't make sense because being that close, I don't think you'd survive that without some serious lung issues at the very minimum. But that scene abruptly ends, maybe after like 6 or 7 minutes, and goes straight to the Harfoots. And as soon as they showed up on the screen, like literally within 2 seconds, my face went from like being interested in the show, like it literally looked like this. And then I started using my phone. Like I was paying attention and listening to it, but I was also like looking up what other people were saying about the episode so far and stuff like that. Oh, the Harfoot storyline. So bad. So boring. So dragged out. I do not care for these characters. I don't care when something good happens to them or bad. Like, I just feel like I'm from a distance watching part of like a play that I can't really hear, but at the same time, I don't want to hear. Like, that's how little my interest is in this part of the storyline. Like I said in one of my earlier episode reviews, the only reason the Harfoot storyline has any appeal to it at all is because of the whole thing with the guy that fell out of the comet. Again, we see him in this episode. They finally show up at the grove to get all their like food and apples and whatever, and the grove is pretty much decimated because of the volcano, and the trees are burnt and stuff like that. So you see the stranger, he looks very sad, and you can tell he's like a tree-loving hippie. There's nothing wrong with that. He like goes up to the tree and he starts speaking to it in a different language. We don't know what he's actually saying, but it's almost like he's like telling it to come back to life or something. The tree starts like doing something, and the Harfoots are all like looking at it, and wow, that's dark. Hang on. Moving. Alright. I don't actually look at the screen when I do these videos, I look at the camera. So if for some reason the last few minutes was dark, like doing this weird stuff, I apologize. I can't fix it now, so. Anyway, so the Harfoots are like looking around at this tree, and they're all like,
"Oh, look, he's doing something to the tree."
And the stupid little kid decides to run closer for some reason. Part of the tree breaks, right? This giant branch comes down towards this kid, and Nori like jumps out and pushes him out of the way or whatever. She tries to protect him. Tree branch fell on them. They didn't get hurt. Everybody was fine. And then they all look up at the stranger like this was his fault. And I was like, these terrible Harfoots and hobbits or whatever, they can't take any responsibility for like anything. They're like looking at him and like,
"You hurt our kids."
which number one, they weren't hurt. And number two, the kids were the ones that like went out underneath this tree. He didn't purposely cause this giant branch to fall. He didn't tell the kids, hey, come on closer, check this out. That sounds very wrong. Like none of this was his fault. And he seems like so distraught because he feels, again, he's put people in danger and hurt people. But none of this was his fault. There was no ill intent there at all. And then he basically kind of like gets kicked out of the camp. Like they didn't say, okay, you need to go, but if he stayed, they would have told him that. I was just like, man, this is terrible. Wouldn't you think, like, oh, it was just an accident, unless he's Sauron, and it was all planned from the beginning. It was just frustrating. And then he leaves all on his own. Later on in the episode, Noria decides, oh, you know what, I'm gonna go after him and help him, because he can't do this alone. And then her friend is like, well, I'm going too, because you can't go alone either. And then the mom is like,
you ladies are going off by yourself? I think not.
Or something stupid. And so she joins them, and then Sadok, the guy who like leads the whole Hobbit Harfoot caravan, is like, oh, I might as well go too. So all these weird things have been happening in Middle-earth. Out of everyone in the Harfoot Hobbit community there, he knows the most and is the most learned and has all the books and everything. And then he just leaves them all there, defenseless and without a leader, to go after someone he's sort of like banished out of the camp. The writing was bad, and the character decisions are bad. And again, that's because of the writing. As far as action goes in this episode, there is hardly any. I'm not sure if there is any, to be honest. Also, it turns out Halbrand is alive, which, shocker. Like, yeah, you think they were gonna give us all these questions about him and fan theories and wondering if he's Sauron or the Witch King or Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny, like, to then just kill him off without any, like, emotional impact during a scene where we actually see him die? Yeah, right. I don't think so. So, he's alive. Like I said, big surprise. He looks awful. Like, he's got this giant cut or stab in the side of his abdomen. Even Galadriel's like, you guys can't heal him. Like, we need elvish medicine and, like, the pros here, right? They're like, well, we have to move him. Do you think he can, ride? And they're like, well, yeah, I suppose he can. It ends with him and Galadriel literally galloping away on horses out of the camp to go presumably head to some elvish camp, base, whatever, for him to get healed. And he's like full on galloping on this horse. Now, I've ridden a horse just with it just walking slowly, and it is very hard on your body. Like, the characters ride horses, and that's like what they do, so they're used to it, but it really engages your core, and that's where his injury is. And I just had surgery where my lower abdomen got cut open, like a 7-inch incision. Let me tell you, any movement you do is incredibly painful, and not just painful, but some movements you can't do because it's all torn up. Riding a horse like that, even if it's just walking, would be incredibly difficult, but it's galloping, so you're literally like rocking back and forth, and your core is super engaged. I would just think that any healing he had that went on inside is just getting decimated, and I'm shocked he isn't like bleeding to death or something. And I was just bummed about that. That really irked me really bad. But was that the thing that irked me the most in this episode? No. No, it wasn't. So, the scene in one of the trailers shows the Balrog. And I love the Balrog, or Balrog, however you pronounce it. I'm gonna pronounce it any way I want. I love the Balrog. I think it's awesome. It's my favorite scene in Fellowship of the Ring. Maybe in all of Lord of the Rings in general. I just love it. And I have like this half statue head candle holder thing that lights up. So it's like really cool. Like, whatever. I love it. And so in the trailer, when that scene happened, I was so excited. I'm like, yes, the Balrog is back. The way they introduced the Balrog in this episode has got to be one of the worst executions of introducing a beloved and terrifying creature to an audience, especially given the source material. We all know that the dwarves dug too deep because of their greed, and they awoke an ancient evil, which is the Balrog. Basically, Durin and Elrond must have disturbed it in its sleep to the point that this stupid leaf, when Durin the king says, okay, shut up this mine, I don't want us digging there, he tosses this leaf into the hole for some reason, and it floats like down like a mile or whatever into the abyss. When it lands on the ground, it bursts into flames and then disappears, and then you see the Balrog light up and roar. It looks cool. It's so lame though, like the execution is so bad. I understand that they possibly, this is the only way I'm justifying this in my head, that they kind of implied that the other stuff happening put the Balrog in a less sleeping state, and then this leaf was like the final straw on the camel's back. But man, super lazy and terrible execution. It's like one of the last scenes, if not the last scene of the episode, and I was so disappointed over the fact that that's how they introduced the Balrog. I was like, really? That's just terrible writing. It's lazy. The execution is lame. So yeah, like overall, this episode was, like I said, the most disappointing for me, the most annoying to me, just because of things going on. Like, it's not even story decisions that the producers or writers decided to go with. It's just small things that just are just common sense. I'm hoping episode 8 is really, really good to make up for this episode. It's gonna be the season finale, so it could be great or it could be terrible. You really don't know with this show, to be honest. But we will see next week. Alright, so what were your thoughts on this episode? Did you have issues with the things I just addressed? Or anything else? Did something stand out to you in the episode, good or bad? Whatever your thoughts are, comment them below. I would actually be very interested in reading them. As always, if you'd like this video and subscribe, I would very much appreciate it, as it does help my channel. Alright, thanks for watching. My name is Aaron. I hope you come back and see me in another video, and also in the next review for episode 8, the season finale of Rings of Power. Goodbye. Oh, also, check out my Middle-earth playlist. It's got all my other reviews for this series so far, and my reactions to the trailer, and other random stuff, my review of the trilogy, things of that nature. So if you're into Middle-earth, go check it out, as you might very well enjoy it. My name is Aaron, and goodbye.